Here's the Lehocky Eagles postgame show. Normally we're at Ocean Casino. We had some technical difficulties down there. We're doing the show from our homes here. Bill Colarulo joins us right now. And this segment, of course, brought to you by First Trust Bank, the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. And hopefully that bank pays dividends more than the Philadelphia Eagles paying dividends right now. But Mark Farzetta, we are also involved in a very nice charity, and we're proud to represent all year long, the EBOD charity. Tell us a little bit about it.
Even though the Eagles don't look like they're poised for a Super Bowl run here, you could be. Tonight's the last night where you guys can get involved. This is for our viewers, our listeners. Make sure you guys help out the EBOD Foundation, our great partnership with the EBOD Foundation. Text the word SCORE to 833-202-9835. You could win 2 tickets to the big game in Vegas, 2-night stay at a hotel, $2,000, people, in cash for expenses. All you got to do right now, text the word SCORE to 833-202-9835, and you'll enter to win this fantastic trip. And together, we'll help with the EBOD Foundation. You and JAKIB Media will help triumph over Alzheimer's. So text the word SCORE, 833-202-9835, and you can win all those great prizes. Tickets to the big game in Vegas, ladies and gentlemen. Get involved.
All righty. So the final was 27-10. It was 24-0 right quick. And it was hard to believe what was going on. And Giants, I think, took their foot off the throttle in the second half. And we saw a lot of Marcus Mariota and backup players. And Nick Sirianni waved the flag going into halftime. Made full-sale substitutions. And, I didn't think that was a great idea. I thought they needed to have the first team start to get rolling a little bit to get some momentum like it was a preseason game going into the season. But they decided to wave the white flag, and we were subject to backup football for the rest of the game. But Bill, let's go to you and your impression of what is left right now with this team. I mean, the regular season's over, the playoffs are here. What is left?
I can't remember, as long as I've been an Eagles fan, ever feeling this down about a team that still had a playoff game left. I mean, there is zero hope from anybody. And I have, you guys know too, there's fans in the chat who are diehard regardless. You can't say a negative word. There is zero hope for this football team. And what I saw tonight, there was a lot of things to be frustrated about. But what was most frustrating for me was you just played this team 2 weeks ago. They blitzed Jalen Hurts in week 16 83% of the time. You're going up against a defensive coordinator in Wink Martindale, who is the second most blitzing defensive coordinator in the NFL, and you had zero answers for the blitz in that first half. I don't understand that. Nick Sirianni says this is his offense. It ends with him. How do you go into a game against Wink Martindale and you don't have a plan for the blitz? And guess what? You know who the number 3 team is in the NFL that blitzes more than anybody? The Tampa Bay Bucks. So what's going to happen next week in Tampa? They're going to blitz you, Nick Sirianni. You better have a damn plan because you didn't tonight.
There is no plan.
By the way, we've heard from Darius Slay. Would you like to know what Darius Slay has put out his message?
He didn't have a bad game. Is that what he said? He didn't have a bad game.
Hey, actually, you know what? That's factual. It's definitely factual. He did not have a bad game today. Let's acknowledge that. But Darius Slay on social media posting 0-0. Let's go. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. They're starting over.
Well,
Forget the record.
I had one ear on you guys in your first segment. I also had one ear on Nick Sirianni's press conference. He said the same thing. That's clearly going to be the message.
Oh, yeah.
But look, everybody was all excited. Not everyone, because we talked about it on the pregame, but a lot of people were excited about A.J. Brown talking at his locker and that this was going to be the turning point for this team. And I said, they didn't bounce back after they got dominated by the Niners. They didn't bounce back after they got dominated by the Cowboys. They didn't bounce back after they let Drew Lock go 92 yards in under 2 minutes. They didn't bounce back now after they got dominated by the Arizona Cardinals. So what makes us think that now, because it's 0-0, this team's going to bounce back? This is just who this team is. They're not a very good football team. They're not a very well-coached football team. And the saddest thing for me, because I was driving home from Atlantic City like all you guys were after technical difficulties, The saddest thing for me right now is when that holding call happened in Super Bowl 57. As sad as it was and as frustrated as we all were, what I found grace in was, okay, they still have a really good football team. They have Jalen Hurts, a franchise quarterback. They have a young coach like Nick Sirianni. We're going to get back, maybe not next year, but we'll get back very, very soon. I don't have confidence now in anything with this Eagles football team. And you start to look not only at next week, but we start to look forward at next year. Does Jason Kelce come back? Does Fletcher Cox come back? Does Brandon Graham come back? Is Nick Sirianni even back? Who's the offensive coordinator? Who's the defensive coordinator? I'm starting to get really concerned, and that's what's making me really sad, is not only is this season potentially over, when are we getting back to being a contender?
Let's stay with this thought, because we talked about this in the first segment about Nick Sirianni, and I actually think they're going to win the game next week. You know, I might be in the minority at this point because I'm looking at Twitter, and Twitter people on Twitter are just checked out for this entire season. But Bill, if they lose to the Tampa Bay Bucks, is the head coach out?
So I've been saying all week that I thought people who were calling for Nick Sirianni's job were overreacting. I didn't think there was a scenario where you would move on from a coach who brought your team to the playoffs in his first 3 seasons, first Eagles coach to ever do it in his first 3 years. I was looking at the Super Bowl hangover and saying, hey, only 6 coaches ever have gotten their team back to a Super Bowl after going and losing the year before. And you were talking about legends. We talked about Tom Landry, Don Shula, Bud Grant, Dan Reeves, Bill Belichick. So Marv Levy did it 3 times. So I was saying, you know what? There's no way you move on from this guy. But after seeing what we just saw, and there were already questions about, did this coach lose the locker room? That was a team that didn't want to play for his coach. That was a team who doesn't have faith in their coaching staff at all. So if they come out and they lay an egg against the Bucs, similar to what you saw tonight, I don't see how you run it back with Nick Sirianni as your coach. And this is coming from somebody who said all week, you guys are overreacting thinking that you fire Nick Sirianni. What I'm seeing is this team looks unprepared. They look like they're uninterested. I don't even know if that's a word. Uninterested or disinterested, yeah. Farzy?
I'll go uninterested. Disinterested can go, yeah.
But you
checked out. They're definitely checked out.
You guys said it in the first segment. Did the San Francisco 49ers break this team? You know, did they say after that game, we're not as good as we thought? And I'm starting to think that last year's team, we had a lot of front runners on this team, man. Even A.J. Brown. I like the guy. I like his play on the field. But last year, it was easy to be a leader on this team. As soon as things started to go bad this year, and we talked about it on the pregame show, he doesn't even want to talk to the media. I'm worried we had a bunch of front runners on this team that couldn't handle adversity. And the moment adversity creeped in, after they got dominated by the 49ers, look at what happened to this team over the last 6 weeks. It's not good, man. It's not good, and it starts at the top with Nick Sirianni. It really does.
So is that a yes?
Yes. That was a long freaking yes.
Oh, so wait. They lose next. That's already on the record. They lose next week. You think that they'll make a move?
If they lose next week, I think you have to make a move. If not, I think you come back next season and you're going to lose pretty much all of your veteran leadership. I don't see Jason Kelce coming back to this team next year. I don't see Fletcher Cox coming back. I don't see Brandon Grant coming back. So you're going to come back with Nick Sirianni as your head coach after this epic collapse and losing all that veteran leadership. If they lose to the Bucs, I don't see how you do. Now, the sad thing is...
And here's the converse to that. Because we know they love kissing themselves, finding the next new toy. They feel their insight to find these off the grid coaches that they've discovered the next oil well, right? To fire him would be to not be admitting that they failed. And I don't believe the Lurie and Howie Roseman duo is willing to do that. Because they would tell people, guess what? I made a mistake. This shiny new toy that we found that nobody else found that actually was the coach of the team that went to the Super Bowl. We found that guy. Now they're going to give up on that?
Yeah, it's a good point that they probably wouldn't want to admit that they were wrong, but they did do it with Chip Kelly. I mean, they did pull that plug very, very quickly, admitted that mistake. You know, the Doug Peterson, they moved on fairly quickly after he won a Super Bowl. So I guess it's a little bit different because they could say, hey, look, he got us a Super Bowl. But look, if Jeffrey Lurie.
They gave Doug Peterson 3 extra years before they went to that decision, though.
They did. And the 2018 season, they got back to the playoffs. That was an up and down season. But look, Jeffrey Lurie, if he's truly committed to winning another Super Bowl, if they come out against the Bucs and they get embarrassed again, I don't care about saving face if I'm Jeffrey Lurie. At that point, this is not going to be the coach that gets us there. Now, I do agree with you, Mike. As crazy as it is, they could still win this game, and not because the Eagles are a good team. I heard Seth saying that they can't win. Seth, did you see what the Tampa Bay Bucs did today against the Carolina Panthers? The Bucs are not a good football team either.
Yeah, Tampa Bay stinks.
So that's my fear is the Philadelphia Eagles win a ugly game next week against a bad Tampa Bay team, and because of that, we run it all back next year because they won a playoff game. Because the Bucs are not a good football team. This team's not going anywhere, the Eagles, even if they get past the Bucs. They're not beating any of the other teams in the NFC. But they could beat a Bucs team that's just as bad as they are.
I'll give both of y'all odds. You name the price.
If you're Nick Sirianni and you can't get a team like the Eagles, you can't get a team like the Eagles up to play a team like the Buccaneers, like you can't get them to even make it look like they're playing for you, even though in the playoffs, and Seth, you could talk about this to teammates that you've had maybe, but good Lord, if you can't get a team to play for the playoffs and extend a playoff run, then you have zero business of being a head coach at the NFL
I don't believe
level.
he's going to get him up. I really don't. I don't think it's going to have anything to do with Sirianni next week.
Oh, I agree. That's my point.
I think this Eagle team has more talent than the Buccaneers, and that alone will enable them to squeak by next week. But it doesn't matter. Next week they get demolished. But if he wins that game next week, it's going to be probably hard to fire him if he loses to San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Because
this is also a team that lost to a 3-win team.
49ers.
Yes, but this is also a team that lost to the Cardinals. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
At home.
Listen, the problem is you're right. You know, there's nothing that he could say at this juncture that's going to change their psychological, output. But they're not winning that game, man. They're not winning next week. You guys, there's a psychological side of football, that people really don't pay attention to. There's a psychological side of everything. Okay. I always say when a player gets hurt, guy has an ACL injury, he comes back. The knee is healthy. He's passed all the tests. He's been cleared to play. But you want to know what hasn't been cleared? His mind, his psychology. Because every time that he runs around out there on that knee or somebody gets close to that knee, the trauma from that injury is real. And he's going to protect it. You got to get hit on that leg to be like, oh my God, it is all right. Now you've overcome that psychological hurt. When you win, there's a psychology that goes with that. There's a confidence that goes with that. There's some swag, and some cockiness that goes with that. When you're a team, when you're a physical team and you beat somebody up and the game is over, you go over and shake their hand, but you looking at them in the eyes like, we kicked y'all's ass today. And the next time we see you, you can count on being kicked again. Okay. Conversely, when you fall into a rut of losing, there's this psychological, situation that happens where everything that you do, you doubt. Okay. What you see, the reason why the Eagles can't stop anybody on defense right now is because nobody has any confidence. Like if I'm responsible for the B gap and the ball comes my way, I'm responsible for the B gap. The philosophy of the defense doesn't allow me to stick my big head in the A gap. That's somebody else's job. But when I go to the B gap with authority, knowing that this is my gap, and I don't care if you come up in here with an 18-wheeler, you're not coming through here. That's a whole different mindset. You understand what I'm saying? And when these guys, when you fall into, listen, I've been on teams that have won a lot. I've been on teams that won 14 games in a row. Okay. I've been on teams, you know, 4 years in college, and we won 4 games my 4 years in college. I know what the psychology of winning and losing looks like. Okay. Forever. You know, when I left here, I went to Arizona. And for years, you know, I would look at that team, all the great players, individual players that they had, you know, and I'm like, man, why can't that team win? You know what it took? It took for me being immersed in that environment for me to understand why they don't win. They don't win because you got factions. This group over here don't like that group, and that group don't talk to that group, okay? And then when we are fortunate enough to win a game, you know, this guy's sitting in the locker room. When the locker room's buzzing, he's got his head between his legs. Dude, what's up? Oh, man, all I had was 2 tackles today. So they play for their own self-gratification. They're not playing for the team to win because they're so used to losing that they got to find some validation somewhere. And where's that validation? In how I perform individually every day. And the team be damned because we're going to lose anyway. Understand the psychology of what's going on. This team ain't winning next week because they're not only physiologically broken with all the injuries that they incurred today, they are mentally and psychologically broken. They're not winning next week. Pack your stuff and get ready because we all going fishing next Sunday.
Well, Jalen Hurts after the game. In the end, it's all about how you respond. We have to respond. We've been hearing that now since the San Francisco 49ers game, and we have yet to see this team respond once. So I agree with you, Seth. The only thing is that Bucs team is just so damn bad, man. That's the only reason why I think they have a shot.
Bill, they're going to look at the film. Bill, they're going to look at the film over the last 2 weeks, okay? And look at how the Eagles played the last 2 weeks. And they're going to come and approach this game the same way that the New York Giants approached it today. The Giants had no business even being in this damn game today. None whatsoever.
They're definitely going to blitz.
At how the Eagles played the last 2 weeks and said, oh, man, we can get some chicken there. We can get some chicken. And they came out and they cooked. They cooked the Eagles' ass today, okay? Every which way. From coaching, from GM to coaching to the players. It's really sad when your special teams is the best out of the 3 phases of your team. And the special teams have been better than the offense and the defense.
Yeah, they're definitely going to blitz the hell out of Hurts and that offense. And we've talked about this before. When you look at that offense, I blame Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson, the fact that they had no plan for a team that you knew was going to blitz you 80, 90% of the time today is all coaching. But when I look at that defense and you look at the players on that side of the football, when you talked about will Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie admit the mistake with Nick Sirianni, when are they going to admit what they did to this defense? And you talk about arrogance. They're not good enough at drafting defensive players to let guys that you actually did develop in TJ Edwards and Marcus Epps, you let them walk out the door and think that you could just replace them with anybody off the street. And we've talked about it before on this show. I talked about it on the pregame. You look at their draft picks over the last 4 years, not including this rookie class. If you really had Super Bowl aspirations, you can't expect that many rookies to carry your defense to a Super Bowl. What you needed, since you have all your money tied up in offense, is you needed guys who were still on their 4-year rookie deals contributing to your defense. And when you go all the way back to 2019, there are no players on the defensive side of the football outside of D tackle that are drafted by this Eagles organization that are contributing to this Eagles football team. And what they try to do is just bring guys in off the street. It doesn't work.
You want to know what part of the problem is too with how they evaluate talent? Is that you're in an era where players don't practice hard enough. They don't practice hard enough and they don't play enough in the preseason, and you don't hit enough for you to really get a true understanding, a true evaluation, when all you do is practice in shorts and shells, well, how the hell are you supposed to know what a player can really do? So here you got 90 players on the damn roster. You go into the preseason. No, you never tackle in practice. You never have a live period in practice. You throw them in a game, and a player makes a play here, makes a play there. Oh, he's a good player. Let's keep him. That's not a true evaluation. It's not a true evaluation. They have overcorrected this thing so far where as far as being able to practice hard and really be able to evaluate how a player plays. You heard the young kid, Sidney Brown, last week talk about, the way that you practice, if you don't practice physical, and the way you practice shows up on game day. There's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, but nobody practices physical these days, which
that
goes
ain't
back
true.
to Bill's point. You got to now evaluate without having the benefit of that.
That ain't true. Go back to last year and look at the Baltimore Ravens, and John Harbaugh got fined for putting his guys in pass and practicing hard and stealing some extra practices. Because what the Baltimore Ravens know that every other team has forfeited, that it's still a physical game. And you still have to practice physical. And
so what are they supposed to do? Get fined? They're supposed to get fined?
Take the fine. Take the fine.
All right, let's take a break right now. This is the kind of stuff, as we go into the break, I got to read this tweet because this is the kind of desperation you got from the people out there. This guy, John, tweets, officially begging the Philly, Sixers, and Flyers to do something exciting. Make a trade, free agent signing, anything to take our mind off the Eagles and pump some energy into the fan base. This is death by 1,000 paper cuts watching this team. It's mercifully over in 7 days. That's what you got people out there.
Well
They're
said.
Ready to jump off the bridge, man.
Let's go Flyers, baby. That's what I'm doing.
Show. We got the Diamond Debate coming up with Kayla Santiago right after this.
Carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.